Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of supergroups, looking at bands who are made up of members from other well-known groups. Today we're looking at a band that we've checked out before called The Sounds of Animals Fighting. This is a supergroup made up of a lot of people over the years, and it's like a really big super group in like the concept of size. There's usually like 7, 8, 9 members here. It's a revolving door of a lot of post-hardcore groups. We have Rich Balling, Matt Embry, and Chris Sagaki from RX Bandits. We have Randy Strohmeyer from Finch, as well as Derek Doherty. We have Anthony Green from Circus Survive. We have backup vocals of Rich Zanisser from the Hippos and Matthew Kelly from the Autumns, and interestingly, the bassist of Atreyu did the artwork for this album. So, yeah, a really big group, and as I said, it's sort of a revolving door. This was just the personnel and lineup of the first album. Every album seems to have a different lineup. And we have checked this group out before. We checked out Act 1, Chasing the Sun or something like that. Chasing Suns. And now we're looking at Act 2, All is Ash or the Light Shining Through It. Let's dive into this and see what The Sounds of Animals Fighting is bringing to the table today. Yeah, so it is 4/4, but they do it in groups of 7 and 9, so the first part seems shorter and the second time through seems longer. Now, do we evolve on the idea, or do we go somewhere totally different? Yeah, like the fourth different idea in a row. Chordal, rhythmic, textural stuff here, but we had riffs in the previous section. Ooh, okay. What in the world? Really interesting harmonic qualities coming from these two guitars. cool little rhythmic pocket here with the guitars. Yeah, fun little drum part. In that transition into this. Yeah, those. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, I gotta put thoughts to words, words to sounds, speak what I'm thinking. There's some stuff in here, take a little bit of time to get used to, but I mean, dude, this is like 2 for 2 with them. I really enjoy this, which makes sense, right? They are a post-hardcore group, and it is some of the most prolific people in the scene. It makes sense I would enjoy it. Even though I never really listened to most of the groups here, our expandants I was introduced to, although I wouldn't call them post-hardcore with what I was introduced to with them. But I was introduced to them through this channel, and I think I've still only heard one song of theirs. Who else did I say was in here? Finch, who I've never heard of. Circa Survive, I knew people who listened to them, but I never got into them. I don't know who Hippos and Autumns are, but I don't think those two people, Rich Zanister and Matthew Kelly, sang on this song, because I primarily heard Anthony Green doing the vocals. Yeah, so that's kind of wild. It makes me want to dig into all of this, especially Finch, but also doubly so for our expandeds because I did enjoy what I heard from them, but it's wild that they're associated with this because, again, that one song I heard was nothing like this. More like an anthemic radio rock track is what I remember. But yeah, I've so much of this reminds me of Kyotos, and I've actually been listening to them this week. I've spun the Devil album, their latest one from like 2016, 2017 was that? Spun that a couple times this week. It's a joy to listen to, and this song reminds me a lot of their whole style, not just the vocal stuff, but the way melodies are done, the way the songs progress, melodic ideas, harmonic ideas. Like this fits really well into my usual tastes. Even though, again, I've never listened to any of the bands in it, which I should fix that, right? So what's going on in here? We start off the song with a really cool idea. It is 16 beats long, but instead of divided into 4 groups of 4 or 2 groups of 8, we have a group of 7 and a group of 9, which means that the second part, or the second repetition, starts a beat early. It actually starts on beat 8, which feels weird because it feels like our first idea gets cut short, and then our second idea just feels like it takes forever because we kind of assume, oh, we have 7 beat ideas now. The next one's 9. It feels 2 beats longer. They'd play what they did the first time. Then there's one extension and then a second extension. It isn't a 2-beat extension on that. They have 2 separate ideas on the 2 beats that help stretch it out to fit those 9 beats and fill up the full 16, giving us the 4 bars of 4. Now after this though, just kind of peters out and we go into something totally different. Very strange. I'm not sure what the intro has to do with anything. It's not uncommon though. There's a lot of, I mean, even just thinking about Kyoto's here, there's a lot of songs on both of their 2 latest albums, Devil and Bone Palace Ballet, that do stuff like this. And eventually you just kind of hear past it, I suppose. It's just a part of the song. It's a quirk of it. I don't know that I could ever explain those away, even having listened to them hundreds of times. It's just what the song does. And that's what I kind of have to assume here too, because if I approach it purely analytically, it makes no sense. It really doesn't. I have no idea why it's there. It doesn't foreshadow anything. That lick never comes back up. We never play around with time signature in any way like that. And even pushing forward, we don't utilize the guitars in any way as close to as we did there as far as melody is written. It almost feels like to me they had this riff lying around and they're like, well, this is too good to get rid of, but we don't have anywhere to put it on the album. They're like, just throw it at the beginning of one. And they're like, okay, Act 2, that's the one that gets it. And so Act 2 to me really feels like it's only, like 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And then it has this weird intro on it that really. Oh, actually, there's an interlude to it. The track before it is called Interlude. It's a 2 minute interlude, and I wonder if it connects to that in any way. I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued by that. Just another reason, I suppose, to check this album out. So we get past this intro, though, and we get into the song proper. We have our verse, we have our chorus. The verse does have some nice riffage to it. The chorus shifts the guitars over to chords. We have a lot of vocal movement across all of this. Two vocalists at least, one a bit on the lower side. I'm going to assume that that is Rich, the vocalist for RX Bandits. The other one is definitely Anthony Green, though he has a much higher range vocal, and it's very distinct to me because it sounds a lot like Craig Owens from Kyotos, and since Craig isn't in here, it must be Anthony. That's how I know Anthony's on an album. They have such similar timbre and tone to their cleans and their harshes, or even similar in ways. But yeah, so we have a lower vocal, we have a higher vocal, and they do some trading off. Pretty cool. Sometimes we get them together. Sometimes they're just overlapping things where they're both singing at the same time, but they're singing totally different words and melodies. Just a lot of complexity going on there. The bass is sitting down at the bottom, holding everything together. A little bit of movement, primarily just there to be glue, to push the chords forward. And the drummer is giving us some steady drum work. Nothing too crazy, a couple of cool little embellishments, and some drum fills, but for the most part, just steady post-hardcore playing. And that's pretty much what we get throughout the verse and the chorus. Things get a little crazy here in the bridge, though. Both of our guitars began playing quarter notes in dyads with seemingly no attention paid to what the other guitarist is playing. I don't know what to make of this. It feels like a descent into insanity. Here's the thing too, is I tried to isolate, like, forget the left guitar, what's the right guitar doing? And I'll listen, and like the pitches don't really seem to have any pattern to them either. And I try to relate it back to what the other guitar's doing. They're not always moving in the same direction. Sometimes they'll both go up, sometimes they'll go in opposite directions. They don't always go in the same intervals. One might make a big leap up to like an octave, the other one only moves like a third, just a couple notes higher or lower. There just seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. If you told me that they just played whatever notes they wanted to as long as it was quarter notes, I would full on believe that that was the story of how that came to be. I honestly don't know if that's pre-written or not, but it just feels chaotic. And of course, against all of this, we have some sort of jazzy idea happening in the center. I don't remember if this was a guitar or bass, but they were sticking within a specific scale. These two guitars, they felt chromatic. I don't think they had any constraints to anything. Like I said, they're just playing whatever note they wanted to next. But the instrument in the middle was giving us a faster moving idea, primarily rising in pitch, but that doesn't mean that it only rose in pitch. Maybe we would come up a couple, down one, up a couple, down one. So there was some movement on the minuscule elements, but overall it was constantly rising. But it was a really cool jazzy chord that they were moving around. It had a pattern to it. It made sense to me. There was a little bit of spice, but still one that allowed it to feel constrained within a specific scale. But unfortunately, it just felt completely dissonant versus the other two guitars. And I think any one of them on their own would have been fine. Any two of them would have been dissonant but palatable on some level. All three of them is just chaos, though. I have no idea what to read into this, especially after a temporally interesting but rather simple intro, general post-hardcore iterative writing for like 2 minutes. And then this, how does this fit into anything else? And then we just sort of have a return to form. We go back to some of the earlier ideas. We increase the intensity. Post-hardcore likes to do variations on final choruses. Usually the vocalist will take things up a third or a fifth, just kind of give us a little bit of a rise, something that pop vocalists used to do a lot, but we don't really hear too much of anymore. And then the song wraps up. And I really don't know what to make of it all. It's do we have post rock? Is that a thing yet? Or post hardcore? Because it's certainly utilizing the sounds of the genre in a way that are iterative at some moments, and then going completely opposite ends of things and exploring wilder concepts, more experimental or progressive ideas. Progressive post-hardcore. That's too many words. But the intro brings in some fun temporal stuff that you would hear in progressive metal. Even progressive rock has utilized fun time signatures like that. And honestly, it's not a fun time signature. It's just a fun phrasing within a normal time signature. But then the whole atonal bridge thing is something you would find a lot in free jazz, but you are also hearing a lot of it in swancore these days, which is a technical kind of post-hardcore. More technical, usually from a harmonic perspective, more so than time signatures or anything like that. But, I mean, I don't know what to make of this. It feels very forward facing for the genre. Maybe it could even be described as, what's that term? Oh, yeah, I mean, it's another post. I was thinking of postmodernism in art. But yeah, that's just more postiness. So yeah, post hardcore. Um, Being that I have Wikipedia up right here, it just says post hardcore and experimental rock and art rock. I mean, all those work, I suppose. And honestly, making more genres, I think, is terrible. I've had this discussion on too many live streams, so I ain't gonna bring it up again. But I think just being able to say that this album has more genres to it, rather than trying to figure out what this genre could be, is probably better off in the long run. But it does. I'm very intrigued by this, as I have been intrigued by their other one, Act 1 Chasing Suns. Though I will say at least that one was a bit more standardized in its sound and clicked with me a lot more clearly. This one, I like the sound of it, but that whole bridge just kind of threw me off. The intro I can't make heads or tails of, so I want to like it. I don't yet. It's going to be one of those things I got to take some time for, which is true for a lot of this kind of stuff. The noisier side of post-hardcore, it's not stuff that I pick up so easily on a first time. Even bringing back, once again, Kyotos, when I initially heard them, I was like, nope, that ain't for me. A few years later down the line, I heard something. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. I found out it was Bone Palace Ballet, the same album someone had tried to get me to listen to years prior. And I was like, this is garbage. So, yeah, sometimes things just take time. Let me find some lyrics for this, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this group doesn't release their lyrics. Because every site that I have found with lyrics on them have question marks and blanks and empty spaces. They're all incomplete. It's maybe they're all just pulled from the same source, and that one source doesn't have all the lyrics. So I'm kind of left with an incomplete set of lyrics to read from. But what I do get out of this is that there is some hatred towards somebody for not being a great person, maybe, but also kind of being upset with themselves for something. I'm not in, Again, I'm not entirely sure on this. The post chorus says, "For if I yield, your exit smiled, the world is to burn when I, or if I yield before eyes, the one in all in all." This makes me feel. This makes me think that there's this war between two people, this battle, and the decision is that the narrator of the story can't back down because the world will burn. Maybe just metaphorically, maybe just their world. You know, things are going to look bad to them or to the people that they're around because they back down from this adversary. But beyond that, I have no idea. The bridge says everyone else could be free now. Hope for honest. That's it. Well, everyone could be free. Hope for honest. That doesn't mean any sense. That doesn't make any sense to me. Verse 3 is about secrets. It's about groups of people and specifically prides of lions and murder of crows. I think using those as a double entendre. He says, but no one knows how it all began or how it'll end. I don't know. There's a lot going on here. Like I said, there's quite a few sections that are missing lyrics too, so I don't even have the full picture of it. But the sections that I do, I don't know. The chorus says, we'll take back when it's time for relieving. It's so hard leaving you here alive. Again, bringing up this concept of being in battle with somebody else. But I mentioned that there's also a general disgust for the self. Verse 2 says, flesh is a heretic, my body is a witch, and I'm burning it. While I can afford this switch, and I resonate, I have seen my fate, I am sinking. Oh, Captain, I am sinking. This might just not necessarily mean about a specific self-hatred, but could just be a need for a change, a shedding of the skin, so to speak, to become something new, something of the future, not of the past, much like a snake shedding their skin. They know that they're drowning and change needs to happen. I need to push forward to be better, and part of that is shedding you, dead weight. Maybe. Again, I don't know. If anyone has any insight into this, please let me know. Also, if anyone has a complete set of lyrics, also let me know. Put all that stuff down in the comments section. These are my thoughts on The Sound of Animals Fighting, Act 2, The Ash. All is ash, or the light shining through it. What did you think of this song? Did anything stand out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you just have your own thoughts, opinions, or perspectives about it. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this one. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of supergroups. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.